Well, hi, everybody. Welcome back to GW Center for Integrative Medicine podcast YouTube channel. Sorry, we've been a little bit absent. That's because Angela and I moved recently, so we've been living off the boxes. So we've a little behind on some of the content, but we so happy that we're finally catching up. And today we have such a pleasure to get to talk to Joelle Rabion, who is our newest addition to CIM staff. And Joelle is a master's in medical cannabis science and therapeutics from University of Maryland School of Pharmacy. And so we're going to be talking about cannabis, obviously, cannabis coaching. So as cannabis coach at CIM, Joelle meets with patients in person and via telemedicine, creating individualized plans based on their medical issues and their unique endocannabinoid system with the objective of finding relief for their symptoms. Joelle, let's start with actually who you are. Why this space? I mean, you've done so much before, and I on purpose didn't want to discuss that. I wanted to kind of give you a floor to tell us about yourself. But tell us your like a life journey and why end up in this cannabis space.
Well, I'll leave out some details and only discuss the relevant details. But essentially, I was working as a holistic health counselor. And my whole objective was to provide people with the tools they need to feel the best in their body and their mind. So I did that for many years. And ultimately, I was really seeking a product because it seemed like the overriding message I was getting from my clients was that they were very stressed out. They had so many things going on in their life. So I wanted to find something. We did yogic breathing, we did all kinds of things to help with their stress, but ultimately I just wanted to be able to hand them something that didn't have any weird side effects so that they could feel less stress in their bodies. And I discovered CBD. And this was in sort of 2014, 2015. So it was a very new idea at the time. And so I was exploring it more carefully. And I really dove into it. And I decided that I would make a product. I would formulate a product that was very easy to use. It was just a little shot. And it was fast acting because I used a technology that made it very fast acting. And in a matter of minutes, they would feel much calmer. And the more I explored CBD, which is the cannabinoid of the plant that does not make you high, but has a lot of healing benefits, I got very interested in the plant itself. And at the same time, I received an ad for a new program at the University of Maryland in their pharmacy department to get a master's in medical cannabis science. So I did that. And at the same time, I started working at a dispensary and in Washington, D.C., a very nice mom and pop dispensary where the focus is on medical cannabis patients. And so I've been working there now for 4+ years, working directly with medical cannabis patients and advising them on products they can use to feel better with their medical issues.
So you've been coached for a long time, you guided lots of people. So once you added the cannabis to the general coaching, right, and just lifestyle optimization and all that, what have you seen change?
Well, the biggest change is the healing process. People come in with very, some issues are very debilitating, and now using the right balance of cannabis medicine, they just feel so much better, and they have their lives are much better in general, and pretty much across the board, it's helpful for people in some manner. It's just a question of finding the right combination of components to work in their bodies.
Yeah, we quite often see the patients will tell us something along the lines of, I was so sick and then I found cannabis and it made me feel a little bit better so that I can finally start doing the better diet, so I can finally start exercising. So we see cannabis in opposite of it used to be believed to be the gateway to hell, as they used to say, gateway to other drugs. Turns out it's actually a gateway to health. It's a gateway to start doing things that you couldn't do before because you finally have relief from whatever is going on. So
Exactly.
I'm very excited that you joined us and to kind of guide that exact process. I think Dr. Benavides and I have been doing a lot of cannabis consulting, but I think that work is much more along the line of kind of a expertise for very specifics of medical problems. And what we've been lacking, and so excited to hire you, is really that there's this coaching component on the whole continuum of health, not just only cannabis, but cannabis in the conjunction with everything else. I think that's really where cannabis can shine.
Agreed.
So tell us a little bit about you. You've had a lot of experience with patients in Tacoma Wellness. We love them. We, as you said, mom and pop shop, right? I mean, they're literally Rabbi Khan started the whole place, and there's a story in itself which we probably don't have time today for, but and they already have that story shared. But you've been working with them. You understand that intricacies of the dispensary and when patients come in, what happens. Talk a little bit about the process, like the patients going through, getting the product, and then getting advising from people like you.
Yeah, so we usually start out, we receive a lot of inquiries from people who are not yet patients. So they call the dispensary and the receptionist gives them my information, encourages them to reach out to me, and then she reaches out to me with their information. So there's uh, a starting place where I introduce myself and ask them about why they're considering cannabis medicine. And um, yeah, we just get to the bottom of what they're looking for. And so I make some recommendations already by email. And I like to work that way because then they have a trail of information that they can refer back to. So we get very specific about what their issues are and what they prefer to use, because there are a lot of different products, and if they want to stay clear-headed during the day and so forth. And then we talk about dosing, etc. So I also let them know when I'll be on site if they feel more comfortable coming into the dispensary when I'm there. And then we'll sit down and talk in person, and then walk into the shop to make the purchases. And then I'll hand them again a little something that I fill out with very specific this many drops at this time and so forth, so that they always have something to refer to when they're using the medicine.
Yeah, so I just want to highlight this so that just our listeners are very clear in understanding. When I wrote a book with Joan, I think it was very obvious there was this big gap. The patients would get a card, right? The physician often would say, "Well, go get some THC and CBD," and then the patients walk into dispenser and they're like, "Oh my God!" Like there are dozens, if not hundreds, of products. I mean, and in dispensary, I mean, Tacoma is amazing, but like that's not every dispensary's experience. There are some, and it's getting better, but in the past, many patients would tell me they walk into dispensary and they get to talk to 18-year-old out of high school who is, tells them if you smoke this one, you get this high, and so finding a person like you who has a tremendous experience and very in-depth, actually way deeper education that I have in this topic, I had to learn from experience. You actually went and you actually did the master's degree in this topic, and meeting you in there, and then being part of the dispensary creates not just like this deep medical experience, but very comfortable experience. Patients don't get overwhelmed. They don't get products that completely irrelevant and potentially can cause massive side effects, which happens. So what conditions do you think are most common you seeing, and where do you think the need for this condition seems to be the largest at the moment?
Well, gosh, we're seeing all kinds of medical issues. There's a lot of cancer patients coming in. Often they want some support around the chemotherapies. They
Mhm.
don't like the feeling of nausea, etc. We see a lot of patients with with pain. That's probably the number one reason people come in. They've had a surgery, or they're just older. They've got some arthritis pain. Maybe they have fibromyalgia. Um, so most people who are older don't want to smoke cannabis. Um, in fact, I've never actually recommend cannabis flower, to any of my patients. We use tinctures or other lozenges, other ingested products, because they're easier to dose,
Mhm.
and they can more specifically address whatever their medical issue is.
Mhm. So you mentioned two conditions which are beyond well evidenced. There should be by now standard of care. I mean, if you look at chronic pain, in 2017, National Academies of Science and Engineering put a report basically saying cannabis for chronic pain is grade A recommendation, stronger than any existing pills. So cannabis is better for chronic pain than any medications, and that's not us saying, it's what evidence shows. No matter that there's some skepticism and some resistance to this idea, but that's what we've learned and that's what we're seeing. So it's not surprising that I think when patients come to you, they're coming for the indicated and for the well evidenced need or symptoms that will be relieved with cannabis more likely than others. What do you think is most challenging part of your work?
Um, Gosh, I really love what I do. I suppose I'm spoiled because I'm working in a place where we have so many products. We probably have more than 500 products. So there are a lot of options to offer people. But yeah, now that you ask, I'm noticing, because in every state, the state has to rely on the licensed growers of that state to provide the cannabis products. It's all very still very regimented, and it has to be, because it's still federally illegal. Um, and what I'm noticing with the growers locally in DC is that they're focusing more on non-CBD products. And so just recently, we've had a little bit of a shortage of CBD only tinctures and CBD only products in general.
Mhm.
So uh, that will change. We've put in a request because we have so many patients who need these. So that's been the only frustrating thing since I started doing this, is just sort of the supply chain.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And and we're in DC, and like you, Tacoma is in DC, but they also can see Maryland patients and Virginia patients. But patients who in Virginia who don't want to come to DC and Maryland, I think they're very, very limited in the number of products or in choices. So
Absolutely.
we
Yeah.
often the people who recommend the cards and write the cards often tell the patients come to the DC, and because the market is the oldest and they have most products, and also they just have most experience, and I would say better products, not just most product, but better products
Yeah,
all.
the products are excellent. They're very
Yeah.
clean. They tend to use the whole plant, so you're getting all of the cannabinoids.
Mhm.
Um, Really, really helpful products.
Do you often have patients who are actually asking you not just to help with, well, take this product for this symptom, but also, I want to formulate something on my own. I want to make my own cream, or, I want to make suppositories. Does this ever come up? Do you ever do?
Sure, sure. Yeah, and we're able to help them with those things as well. We do offer suppositories, we do offer those things, but yeah, some people really prefer to take it into their own hands, and there are absolutely ways to for individuals to create their own formulas.
Right. And I think that gives the freedom to be very specific and sort of beyond. And also sometimes it's a lot cheaper. So we kind of have to, let's talk about this for a minute, because this whole field is, not covered by any insurance since it's still federally illegal. Um, and it could be very pricey. So one aspect I think here is people don't realize that a couple of coaching sessions with you could save them in the long run hundreds, if not thousands of dollars, because they often not realizing that they can spend, a fraction of the cost if they get some base oil and formulate products, or they simply don't get flour and they get concentrate, which will save a ton of money. Talk a little bit about it, and I'm going to mute myself so the dogs are not in there.
Sure. Yeah. So generally, people, when they think about cannabis, they think about smoking it. So already it's surprising to some people that there are all these other options. And as far as shopping at a dispensary goes, the most economical approach is always with the tincture, because it's a little bottle with a built-in dropper, and it's used by the drop full. And most bottles are 15 milliliters. They can go up to 30, twice as big. But even the smaller one would last at least a month, even if you're using it every day, because it's just literally dropfuls. If people want to use, if they're health issues are more challenging and they want to start with a RSO, like a Rick Simpson oil, those come in a syringe. They're not injected, they're put in the mouth, but it's just a format to make it easier. They're kept in the fridge so that they stay solid because it's oily, or the freezer. And that's a product that you could use to make your own suppositories or gummies or whatever you would like.
So the tincture routinely would cost what, like between $40-$60 plus minus something in that range?
Sometimes they're as low, there are always sales. They can get it under $30. So for a month, that's, $1 a day.
Yeah, and what do you think for a month the person would spend if they use flour?
More than that.
Way more than that, right?
Yes.
Hundreds of dollars usually.
Yes.
So I think those are the details that people often not just not understanding, they really don't think of them because they sort of have some kind of an idea that this is how the products are used. And, I think, again, just highlighting how important all this, because, if you're making this a medicine, the expectation is that potentially you're going to take this for a while. And with that in mind, you have to plan accordingly. You don't want to spend hundreds of dollars on something. So that's very helpful. So sometimes prices are not as high as people assume, because I always get this question, well, I'm going to be spending $1,000 a month, right? No, you potentially going to be spending less than co-pays on your medications. And I see this all the time. So working in dispensary, you see all kinds of people, right? I mean, you see all kinds of walks of life, you see everybody. But you're probably also seeing patients who are not necessarily into the kind of tradition, into the Western model, right? They're looking into much more of an alternative approach. That when that comes up, what have you been seeing? What usually happening? Do people start asking you questions? Well, how do I integrate this with something else, or what are you observing there?
Yeah, I mean, that's another exciting thing, working with you now at the Center for Integrative Medicine, because sometimes cannabis can help in some ways, but by adding another aspect of non-traditional Western medicine, they can really achieve a full holistic experience, by just addressing the body as a whole and looking at these different modalities to really get in there and get to the bottom of what's not working 100% in their bodies is wonderful.
Yeah, exactly. I think cannabis fits into so many. It's like in a puzzle of healing. It's often such a big piece, but if you augment it with other things, you make it so much more powerful. So exactly. Well, we are about to see a major shift. Well, we hope we will see a major shift, right? Because the current administration proposed that we move cannabis from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3. Nobody knows what will happen. Well, what do you think will happen in terms of just logistics? Like, theoretically, if it goes to Schedule 3, it should be prescribed at the pharmacy level. What are you hearing? Like, what's going to change on just practical level for patients trying to get the products?
Yeah, well, I think the most exciting aspect of this rescheduling is the access to research. This has been a real issue because many people come into the dispensary and they want to see evidence. They want a background on this, and I usually point them to your book. There's 27 indexed pages of medical proof or whatnot, of evidence. And so now with the rescheduling, whenever it happens, it might not be till next year when it actually occurs, people will be able to get their funding financed by government entities. So that's huge. I think that's, for me, is the most major thing.
Mhm.
And yeah, secondarily, it'll just be more accessible. I'm not sure how that's going to roll out in terms of the pharmacy. There have to be some safety factors built into it.
Mhm.
Um, we've already seen in places where it's gone from medical to recreational use, like in Colorado or California, we see a lot more visits to the ER because people who haven't been using it just start to overuse it, and it hits their body very hard, and they don't know what to do. So
Mhm.
there have to be some precautions in place so that these kinds of things aren't regular occurrences. Um, but yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for it to be less onerous to have access to it. That's going to be very helpful.
It's a great segue to something I want to talk anyway, kind of the safety and quality control. So you're working again in dispensary that's top notch, and I generally think DC does a good job of quality control of the products and the growers. But there's always questions comes up. Patients always very skeptical. They're saying, well, these are not medications, right? So how do I know that the product is what's on the label? How do I know that the product is quality product? So talk to us a little bit about that, because I know in school particularly you guys spend a lot of time talking about quality control.
Yeah, so if you're shopping at a dispensary, all of their products have been third party tested. So if you ever have a doubt, you can ask for something called the certificate of authenticity. So every product has that associated with it, and it might not be from the dispensary, but from the grower. So the dispensary would then point you to the grower, and the grower would provide that for you. So it's
So
not
this,
something. Go ahead.
so this is very important for skeptics, because people often say, well, I can't trust this because it's a farm, the dispensary selling the product. Of course, they want to sell it. How do I know that? Well, because it's a third party. It's an independent organization, and that they're actually controlled by the state.
Mhm.
And in Maryland and in the Virginia and in district, that there are rules in place that everything is very tight. And I actually have seen how it operates in Maryland. I haven't been in DC growing facility in a while, and in the making facility, but I have seen how it's going on in Maryland, and I will tell you, it's kind of actually stricter and more aggressive control in terms of control than pharmaceutical industry. So I tell all my patients I'm completely comfortable as long as you're getting it from dispensary. Now, if you've gotten it elsewhere, who knows, right? I mean, the quality there is different. Um, so what do you think of cost is still an issue? Even, yes, we talked about, but cost is still an issue for a lot of people. Um, do you ever talk to people about growing their own flower at home? Does that ever come up?
If that is something they would like to do, I would put them in touch with one of our patient consultants or bud tenders, because they're much more well versed in that side. Um,
Mhm.
I've never really grown it myself. It's not an easy plant. I mean, I guess if you're just growing it personally, you could probably manage it, but it's not a typical plant that you just sort of put into the ground and let grow. It needs attention.
It needs some management, right?
Yeah.
But do you think that comes up? Like, do you think that's what proportion? I guess the question is, what proportion of patients do you think end up trying, at least? Or
I'd say a very small.
very small?
Given the amount of labor, there's time. The plant yield at the beginning is not so great.
Well,
Yeah.
and also you get raw flour, so if you want to make a tincture out of this, that requires a whole kinds of
Oh,
process,
yeah.
which is very difficult. So yeah, right. Um, what do you want to talk about? Like, do you have any subject you think we didn't touch upon yet?
Um, I think it's going to be interesting moving forward with, there are some FDA approved cannabis drugs. like Epidiolex and dronabinol. And I
Mhm.
heard recently that there's a shortage of dronabinol. They're having problems finding a key ingredient. And I think this presents an opportunity for the dispensaries to step up and provide this type of medicine that has been something a patient could purchase at a pharmacy. So that's interesting. I don't know how that could
I
come to
did not
pass.
I did not know that, but I will tell you from what I hear from my patients, I rarely prescribe dronabinol, but and if I do prescribe it, I usually prescribe it for only Medicaid patients because they don't have copay. The thing is that dronabinol costs somewhere between $2,000 to $10,000 a month.
That's why I mentioned it because um, there's actually no reason for that
Exactly.
because it's an isolate.
It's
It
just a
doesn't,
THC. It's a
yeah,
pure
it's just THC.
yeah,
So it's not going to even work as effectively as a dispensary product.
exactly.
Um, so yeah, I'm really fascinated by this. It's a huge market opportunity because I looked at the market size for dronabinol and it's sort of 230 some $1 million a year.
Wow.
That was 2022. So yeah, uh,
Yeah, so if people are considering trying dronabinol, and let's say you have high deductible insurance, I would strongly advise you against it because
yeah,
you will be paying thousands of dollars where you can pay hundreds of dollars full price for a better cannabis product. And by the way, just if people asking, well, why is it better? Well, because the dronabinol is a pure THC, it's an isolate. You get no terpenes, you get no entourage effect. There's no other beneficial ingredients in there. And so what I've heard from my patients, you get this intense high if you take a little too much. And if
yeah,
you underdose, it doesn't do anything. And so people end up sort of saying you yo-yo between too much or too little. You can't precisely titrate it because it comes in this gel caps. You can't cut them. You can't do anything. You either take 2.55 for 10 milligrams and maybe you need 3.5, right? And so how do you get there? Well, you can't. You have to either take more or less, and it just doesn't really so but you raised an interesting point. What will happen long term here with pharmaceutical grade, like with, let's say, Epidiolex, or if we ever get Sativex, which is one-to-one THC to CBD approved, that's available in Europe? We don't know. I actually do recommend Epidiolex, or I prescribe it quite a bit lately, more because, again, say if somebody needs a lot of CBD for seizures or for something else, that actually becomes more expensive in dispensary. Shocking. If the insurance covers their Epidiolex or there's copay, but copay could be smaller. That is one area where I find CBD surprisingly pharmaceutical grade is okay. And Epidiolex is a full extract, in contrast to Marinol or Dronabinol, which is an isolate. Epidiolex is a full extract. It isn't an alcohol, so that's a minus, but nonetheless, it's still a viable option. So, well, good. That's a good topic. So before we conclude, I have kind of a last final question. What's your particular interest in here? Like, what do you love to, what kind of conditions you like to help patients with? What kind of your personal favorite topic within the whole medical cannabis topic?
hmm. I just because I develop a relationship with each patient, I like to follow through the process where they're really at a loss when we first start to have the conversation, and then maybe 2 3 months later, maybe a year later, they circle back. You help me with this. Now I've got this going on. Um, I like the relationship aspect of it, and just really creating a sense of trust and just being a person they can really rely on to help them with what they need, regardless of the health ailment.
Well, thank you. I did forget to mention something rather important. You are the holistic health coach and a member of the American Association of Drugless Practitioners, which I love. I mean, the whole idea that we shouldn't start with meds when we can, right? So that's very in line with sort of my philosophy of care. The reverse of what's happening now, right? So the first, you have hypertension, take this drug. And the idea should be no, take the drug only if everything else fails. If the lifestyle and holistic methods all fail, then you should be taking the medication. Well, Joelle, thank you so much for coming on. I think that's all time we have for today. This is GW Center for Integrative Medicine podcast and YouTube channel. We were talking with Joelle Rabion, who's a medical cannabis coach who holds masters in medical cannabis science and therapeutics from University of Maryland School of Pharmacy. Stay safe, everybody. Hopefully, we're not going to see another COVID wave, but do precautions and stay cool. It's hot outside. Take care, everybody.
Bye.